Hello there, and welcome to another deck profile on London Players Guild by me, Blaney P. And today I will be going over my set 3 yellow build. This is the first of our set 3 builds on here, and I am excited for these cards. So, let's get started with the baby of the deck. It is Upamon, which is when attacking once per turn, if your security is 3 or less, draw +1 card. Such a great baby compared to the other previous yellow babies we've had. There's one similar to this, but you have to be at 5 security to be drawing, which sort of contradicts where the rest of the yellow cards sort of want to be on security. If you look at the majority of the triggers for yellow, you have to be on security 3. So Upamon is so much better for that. Up next we have Patamon, which I run as a 2 of in this, which is the when played reveal top 4 cards of your deck, add all yellow tamer cards from amongst those cards to your hand, and place the rest at the bottom of your deck. So, does what it says on the card, play it, costs 3, and you have a chance to grab as many tamers as you possibly can from the top 4 cards of your deck. Really good to start getting them in there and trigger it alongside the Rise Greymon, so that you get to play them tamers out for free. Up next, Agumon, which I run as a 3 of. There's so many good yellow rookies, which is why you'll see my numbers are a bit all over the place with them, because they all have the purpose. And for this Agumon, he has the inheritable of when attacking, if you have 3 or more yellow tamers, draw 1. So again, consistency card. You get your champions out, stuff like that on top of him, or even your megas, and you start swinging. And you're getting to draw for it. You've got the Patamon to help you find your tamers, and you've got the ultimate Rise Greymon that lets you put tamers out for free. Salamon, which is in here as a 3 of, just to help you refresh your security and keep yourself alive a little bit more. I run this as a 3 of again, just because there are times in a game where you just want a Salamon. Running them at 3 gives you the chance of finding that Salamon when you want to find it, swinging in, putting pressure on your opponent, and just gaining a security back. Up next is Lopmon, which I couldn't get an English print of this card, so I've got the Japanese one here, but I will tell you the ability, which is when played, you take the top security card, add it to your hand, and then you also draw a card. So, play him for free, and then you get 2 cards off him. Insane value. Also helps you get to that free security that you want to get to, just for the more value. Obviously, he does have to be played, so he will cost you 3. If you evolve him, you don't get that ability, but still, for free, and then getting 2 cards is really good value for this game at the moment, even if one of them is your security. But like I said, double-edged sword there, because he can turn you on, get you to that 3, and get you to triggering the rest of your deck. So, great value. Up next, Patamon, run this as a 2 of again, which is just when your opponent's Digimon is destroyed because its DP was reduced to 0, get +1 memory. If I was honest with myself, I could probably whittle this Patamon out, just because the only thing in this build that I'm running that reduces the DP of any Digimon is the Glorious Bursts, but it still makes Glorious Burst 1 cheaper. So if I can have one of these on the field when I'm using a Glorious Burst, I'm going to try and do it. But if you didn't want to run the Patamon, you could always just bump Agumon and Lopmon up to 4 each, if you feel like you're going to get more value out of seeing them more consistently. But it's my personal preference. Up next is a 4 of Anklemon, which you do really want to see in this deck, because this deck has the megas that do allow you to throw stuff from your discard pile back to the top of your security, which means Anklemon, when he's in security at the end of the battle, play this card without paying its cost, meaning that your opponent attacks into you, you flip an Anklemon, you put it onto the field, you can either evolve up to him next turn, on your turn, and start getting another mega out, or you can just swing in with him, allow him to go to the discard pile, and then swing in with your Mega, and then get him back onto the onto your security stack again, meaning that every time your opponent swings into you, you're putting an Anklemon back there that's going to come straight back on the field and bite them. Up next, I run two of Cherubimon, which is, he's just a cheap champion. If I want to get up a chain fast, I run him as a 2 of just for that reason. If I get to him, I get to him. And it means that he only costs me 1 energy to get through the champion stage, meaning that I can get to me ultimates or me megas faster and give my opponent less memory. There isn't really a lot in yellow at the moment that I feel like benefits you on inheritable lines around the champion stage. Hence why I just went for the cheaper champion option. And then up next is a 4 of Unimon. Unimon is your blocker. He stops you dying. I'll say this every time we go over blockers in this game. A blocker does what a blocker does. Costs 2. 6k. Stops you getting killed. Up next, we go into the ultimates. Rise Greymon, strongest ultimate in yellow. I'll argue this with anyone. As he is, when Digivolved, you may play 1 yellow Tamer from your hand without paying its cost. Tamers played by this effect do not activate their when played effects. Now, a lot of the yellow stuff doesn't have a when played effect. The only thing that has a when played effect is your TK that gives you the memory. So, otherwise, you are just getting value. He costs 3 to evolve, and then the Tamers in this deck cost 4, 3, 2. So, worst case scenario, you're getting 2 memory for free. Best case scenario, you're getting 4 memory for free. If you get the 4 memory, you don't get the ability of it, but you've still got your turn by turn free memory guaranteed. Or you're just adding Tamers to turn on your Agumon that then lets you draw a card every time you attack, and turns on Rise Greymon's inheritable, which is your turn. If you have 3 or more yellow Tamers, security attack +1. Another reason why Rise Greymon's one of the best ultimates in yellow, if not the best ultimate. Up next, we have Anklemon, which is the new set 3 Anklemon, which is what I've sort of built this deck around, is the when Digivolve, one of your opponent's Digimon gets security attack -2 until the end of your opponent's next turn. Now, why is this good? Because you're stopping your opponent from killing you. If you see that they're evolving a threat, evolving does not clear effects on them. So, they have a champion out. You know that they can get to a Mega next turn. Evolve into an Anklemon and take away that threat's attacks. Means it's not doing damage to you, which is why I've built this deck not too focused on clearing your opponent's board. Because instead of clearing your opponent's board, you're going to make your opponent's board useless. It's not going to do any damage to you. You don't need to be afraid of it. So Anklemon's a quick fix to deal with a threat. Up next, we have the Recovery Anklemon from the starter deck, which is when evolved, if security is 3 or less, recovery +1. Now you run a few recovery bits in this deck just to buy you time to get to what you need, or if your opponent has somehow managed to apply pressure onto you and you didn't see it coming, you can recover on there. Or the other reason you might want to do some recovery is for Patamon, which is when Digivolved, discard 1 security of both players from the top. Then you may play 1 level 4 or less yellow or purple Digimon from your trash without paying its cost. Again, this is another way that you could possibly get one of your champions out again. You could even get your Lopmon out and start going up another evolution chain. There's quite a few options there with him, really. Anything that's champion or below. Blockers, another good option. You know, because you have just damaged yourself for 1. But again, the other option is you play Patamon, you get a champion, and then you go into the Anklemon we just spoke about. If your Patamon has critted you below 3 or onto 3, and you want to go back up to 4 because you're a bit worried about your opponent's board state, and then you've just damaged your opponent for 1, and then not actually damaged yourself at all. You've basically gained another body on field by doing that play. And I'm going to backtrack a little bit because I just realised I did also miss the inheritable of Anklemon, which is if your security is 3 or less, play 1 level 3 or less yellow Digimon from your hand without paying its cost. Meaning that if you want to crit yourself to 3 to start getting your effects turned on the next turn, you could have your Mega out, swing with it, and then you could play a Lopmon from hand for 3 and then gain 2 cards from the Lopmon, which is insane value when you're doing it for free. Not actually paying free, for free. Now let's get back on track, guys. Now that I got lost a little bit, apologies for that. I hope I'm still making sense to you all in here, but it has been a long week. So, up next, Cherubimon, which is, when attacking, if your security is 3 or less, place 1 yellow Digimon from your trash on top of your security. So, doesn't specify what level of yellow Digimon it has to be. So you've got a Mega in your trash, you stick it on there, and you scare your opponent. Because you also run the 2k buffer security TK in this deck, meaning that you can swing in with a Cherubimon. You could put another Cherubimon or a Kentasaurusmon from your discard on top of your security, meaning that you if you've got 1 TK out, that's a 13k security buffer they've got to get through. There's not a lot that can get through that other than things like Unimon. And if you've got both of your TKs out, then you're at the same DP as Unimon, meaning that your opponent knows that to get through their security, they have to suicide one of their Digimon. They have to do a full kamikaze, swing in, and lose that threat on the field just to get through your security. A lot of the times, it won't even need to be that high. They may have ultimates on the board, you've cleared some threats, you've done some field control attacking into their threats, and they're left with an ultimate summit and they just want to apply pressure. And you can just shut that down by putting a champion in there or an ultimate on top, because this does not specify that you have to shuffle. It just goes straight on the top. So your opponent knows what it is, you know what it is, and that's not a bad thing if you can put something big enough there. And up next, the ultimate time buyer in the deck. When Digivolved, security attack -2 until the end of your opponent's next turn. And that is to 5 of your opponent's Digimon. That's right, up to 5. So they have 1 on board, 2 on board, 3 on board, 4 on board, 5 on board. They all get minus security attack too. Meaning that there's very few cards out there that tend to swing for more than 3 security. Well, 2 security. And it's very rare that your opponent will have multiple threats on board that can swing for more than 2 security. And if you can keep this pressure up and keep playing your Kentasaurusmons, there's really not much your opponent can do. And for the chips that you will get through, that's where your Cherubimon comes in and your Angelwomans come in and they just replace them chips that you're losing. Up next is TK. This is your memory 2 or less becomes free tamer that pretty much every deck runs. And when you play him, you also get to check all your security cards, reveal 1 from among them, and add it to your hand. If it's a yellow security card, recovery +1. This is why TK is great. He gives you security knowledge. No one else gets security knowledge, just yellow. And that then tells you what's in your deck, since nothing searches your deck. And to top it off, you get to pick 1 of any of them 5 cards and add it to your hand. If you've picked the yellow one, then you put the top card of your deck back onto your security and you've lost no security. So you're missing a champion and you've got a champion in there, you grab it. You're missing an ultimate, you got an ultimate in there, you grab it. And the beauty about decks like this, where you've got so much recovery, is when you run 8 Tamers, you've got very high chances of putting your Tamers into your security, meaning that when your opponent is swinging into you, you get chance for playing these things for free, and it's just insane value again. Up next is Kari, which is why you want to live on free, because if you live on free, then your memory goes up a turn each turn for every Kari you have on the field. So combine that with TK, because they both trigger at the start of your turn, so you trigger TK first and then Kari afterwards, meaning you have 2 Karis out, you go up to 5 memory every turn consistently, as long as you're at 3 security or less, meaning that you can do bigger plays than your opponent, and people always fall, not always, but often fall to the trap against yellow of, oh, he's going to get loads of energy anyway, so what's the difference in me giving him a little bit more? So it forces your opponent to make big plays because they know you can make big plays. So often they'll take you above 3 memory anyway, and then you still get the pluses off Kari. And then up next, the final the final Tamer card of the deck. TK, opponent's turn, all of your security Digimon get plus 2k, which I did refer to earlier. So you get a Mega in there, and you're going to have a 13k or even 15k wall if you can put both of them down. I only run 2 of these, just because I couldn't find space for any more, and I also don't want them clogging me up too much. I do tend to find that 1 or 2 of them is enough, because you have 1 out on field, and then your rookies are going to take Megas. Not Megas, sorry. Your rookies are going to take Champions. Your Champions will take Ultimates. Your Ultimates will take Megas. It just bumps up the deck enough to be able to chip down people's things and prevent some of the attacks. And finally, I run a 2 of Glorious Burst, which is the cost of this card in your hand is reduced by 1 for every one of your yellow Tamers. At main, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 12k until the end of your turn. So it looks really expensive at 9, but in yellow decks, you tend to get 3 to 5 Tamers out on the field during games, meaning that it's only really going to cost you anywhere between 6 and 4. And if you manage to get one of the Patamons out on one of the inheritable lines, you can knock another point off for that. So it becomes a reasonable value, as most option cards are out there. I only run it as a 2 of because I don't want to see him in my security, because it doesn't trigger in your security, and it's only really there to get rid of anything that's 12k or above. It is a bit of a risky build in the fact that this is the only way to take care of 12ks or above, but it's a risk I'm willing to take because the 12ks are the only things that are going to do any real damage to you. They're probably going to be the ones that may have 1 or 2 more security attacks. You're going to null and void the rest of the field, so you can probably sustain taking turn by turn chips off them, because you'll be turn by turn chipping them as well. And that is it for this deck profile, guys. Don't forget to tune in on Twitch on Wednesdays between 8 and 9 when I am live until late. And yeah, thanks for tuning in.